I've read Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lembke, and I liked it. The book highlights many psychological concepts that I think can be helpful for most of us. It's also easy to read, and it doesn't ever feel too long or boring like many books can. And here are some of my thoughts after reading it. First of all, simply the concept of how addiction works is interesting because it's so universally human. It's relevant for all of us and not just the typical junkie that you see in the movies. We can all relate to the feeling of craving something and having some form of discomfort without it, right? Everyone is vulnerable to addiction, but we do have different drugs of choice, whether it's drugs, food, gambling, shopping, gaming, porn, social media scrolling, or something else. Now, our addictions may not be very harmful to ourselves or our loved ones, and for most of us they aren't, and our addictions wouldn't be clinically diagnosed, but still, I think we can all overconsume, at least in periods, and we might be happier and healthier with some more balance in our lives. The view of addiction researchers is that anything you can do that causes a dopamine release in your brain can be addictive. And the more dopamine that's released, the more addictive is the activity. And by the way, dopamine is basically a substance in your brain that makes you feel good. It's a part of your reward system, and it also motivates you to go after your goals. But if you want to learn about dopamine in more detail, I recommend watching neuroscientist Andrew Huberman's videos on the topic. Simply put, addiction is wanting more of the pleasure of the dopamine release and missing it when it's gone. The next concept I found useful in the book is the understanding that we as humans are adapted to live in a world of scarcity and starvation. But in contrast, in the modern world today, we live in abundance. And so, with almost unlimited access to high dopamine sources, it's very hard for us to live in balance, and we tend to just consume. While it's of course very pleasant to live in such luxury, it can also mess things up for us. Pleasure and pain are connected in our brains and work kind of like opposites. If one increases, so does the other, as the brain tries to maintain a balance between them. This makes it so that we can get used to pleasure or pain, and we need more and more of it to get the same effect over time. In other words, we build a tolerance to both pleasure and pain. So when we flood the brain with dopamine, we get used to such a high level of it that we no longer enjoy simpler things in life. We get very easily bored with more and more things that we used to enjoy. So basically, we become dopamine monsters in constant need of distraction. Now, because of the relationship between pleasure and pain in the brain, even pain can be addictive since it'll lead to increased pleasure afterwards. Runner's high or the release of endorphins after hard exercise are some common examples of that. And also scary movies, where the discomfort of seeing what we almost can't stand to see just makes the relief so much sweeter afterwards. Another commonly desired effect of high dopamine activities is that they cover up emotional pain and real-life problems, temporarily of course. This is a common reason why people get addicted. Endless distraction becomes necessary to run away from problems and difficult emotions. And the issue is that distractions and pleasure, of course, don't solve anything. They just kind of push it forward, procrastinating the pain, if you will. And this makes us disconnected from ourselves, since there's an important part of us that we don't understand, but that generates anxiety, confusion, sadness, insecurity, etc. If we don't face that part of ourselves, we also can't deal with it. We can't understand it, and we can't grow and move past it. So the addiction to distraction makes us more intolerant of life's challenges, and we increasingly feel the need to escape from the present moment. Boredom becomes dangerous, but without boredom and downtime, we also lose a lot of possibilities for creativity, self-reflection, and growth. So all in all, there are many reasons why finding more balance could be beneficial. I also want to add here that it's extremely lucrative for businesses to hack this part of human nature. They try to make social media sites, apps, games, even the food we eat, as addicting as possible by maximizing the dopamine that is released when we use them. So this creates a vicious circle where the more we use it, the more we feel like we need it because of the tolerance buildup I mentioned before. And the result is that you become more addicted and they make more profit. On a final note, I'll say this. What balance looks like in practice will be different for all of us. But the first step is always understanding. Maybe living in abundance is a reason you're not as happy and healthy as you'd like to be. I know it's important for me to be mindful of over-consuming my drugs of choice. And living in balance is not something we can ever be done with. It's more like a direction to always try to move toward. The author touched on many more interesting and useful concepts, but I don't want to make the video too long. If you found this interesting though, I definitely recommend reading the book. Thank you for listening. Take care.